Helping people can feel like the purest thing you do. You give your time, your energy, your money, your advice, your emotional support, and sometimes even your own peace because you believe loyalty should be remembered. But human nature is more complicated than that. Sometimes the person you help the most becomes the one who distances themselves, criticizes you, minimizes what you did, or treats your kindness like something they never asked for. This is the dark psychology of helping too much. Gratitude does not always stay gratitude. In certain people, it slowly becomes shame. Shame becomes discomfort. Discomfort becomes resentment. And resentment searches for a way to reduce the person who helped, because accepting the help completely would mean accepting the weakness they felt when they needed it. This is not a reason to become cold. It is a reason to become wiser. The first brutal lesson is that receiving help does not always create closeness. Sometimes it creates an invisible wound in the ego. To you, the act may feel generous and simple. You saw someone struggling, and you stepped in. But to the person receiving it, the help may carry a second meaning they cannot easily admit. I could not do this alone. This is where the relationship begins to change. The person may thank you, smile, and say they appreciate you, but inside, another feeling can begin growing quietly. They remember that you saw them in a vulnerable state. You saw the moment when they needed saving, guidance, money, emotional support, or stability, and some egos cannot tolerate being remembered that way. Nietzsche understood that human beings do not only want comfort, they want power, autonomy, and the feeling that they are strong enough to stand on their own. When your help reminds someone of the opposite, gratitude can become painful. Not because you did something wrong, but because your kindness became a mirror of their weakness. At first, the person may truly feel grateful. They may remember what you did, speak well of you, and feel relieved that you were there. But over time, if they believe they can never return the same level of support, gratitude begins to feel heavy. What once felt like kindness starts to feel like a debt they cannot repay. This emotional debt can become difficult to carry because it places them in a lower position inside the relationship. You may not see it that way. You may never mention what you did. You may have helped from the heart. But if they feel internally smaller whenever they remember your help, their mind will search for a way to escape that discomfort. One way the ego escapes debt is by reducing the value of the giver. They begin to say it was not that much. They tell themselves anyone would have done it. They focus on your flaws. They rewrite the story until your help looks ordinary, accidental, or even selfish. This protects their pride because it makes the debt feel smaller. Some people can forgive almost anything except being seen when they were weak. They may not consciously hate you for helping them, but they may hate what your presence reminds them of. You became a witness to the moment they were scared, broke, confused, rejected, unstable, or dependent. And that memory can feel humiliating to an ego that wants to look powerful. This is why they may begin creating distance after the crisis passes. When they needed you, your presence felt safe. But once they recover, the same presence can feel like evidence you know too much, you saw too much, you remember a version of them they want to bury. And instead of facing that discomfort, they may try to bury you with it. The betrayal often begins quietly. Less warmth, less contact, a strange tone, a criticism that feels unnecessary, a coldness you cannot explain. They are not only pulling away from you, they are pulling away from the image of themselves that your help exposed. Your kindness became connected to their shame, and now they want distance from both. Resentment is one of the most hidden forces in human relationships. It does not always look like open hatred. Sometimes it looks like sarcasm, coldness, avoidance, criticism, or a sudden need to prove superiority. Nietzsche saw resentment as the emotional weapon of a wounded pride that cannot accept reality directly. When someone feels inferior but cannot admit it, they need another explanation for their discomfort. Instead of saying, "Your help reminded me of my weakness," they may say, "You think you are better than me." Instead of admitting that they feel indebted, they may accuse you of making them feel small. This reverses the pain and makes you the problem. This is why helping someone does not guarantee loyalty. If their ego is not strong enough to receive help with dignity, your generosity may become an emotional threat. A mature person can be helped and still feel whole. An immature person may need to diminish the helper just to recover the illusion of being untouched. Every relationship has an invisible structure. When both people give, receive, support, and respect each other, the connection can breathe. But when one person always rescues and the other always needs rescuing, the structure begins to bend. Even if love is present, the relationship starts to feel less like companionship and more like dependency. At first, the imbalance may look noble. You solve problems. You carry emotional weight. You open doors. You offer advice, money, patience, and opportunity. But the more you become the permanent solution, the more the other person may feel smaller beside you. And many people would rather damage the relationship than keep feeling inferior inside it. The wiser way to help is to restore dignity, not create dependence. Do not carry the entire weight of someone else's life. Involve them in the solution. Let them stand up. Let them use their own strength. Real help does not make you indispensable. Real help gives the other person enough power to no longer need you in the same way. Sometimes the problem is not only what you gave, it is what your help revealed. Your discipline, stability, patience, emotional control, or ability to solve problems may silently expose the difference between where you are and where the other person feels they are. You may never say you're stronger, but your presence can become a mirror they do not want to look into. This is why some people begin competing with the person who helped them. They cannot erase the moment they needed support, so they try to reduce the one who gave it. They look for flaws, question your motives, criticize your success, or act as if your help was not important. It gives their pride a way to breathe again. The painful truth is that not everyone is inspired by being helped. Some people are humbled and grow stronger. Others feel exposed and become defensive. The difference is emotional maturity. A strong person can receive support without losing dignity. A fragile ego must attack the mirror because it cannot tolerate what the mirror shows. There is a dangerous point where helping someone stops being support and becomes rescuing. Support says, "I will stand beside you while you rise." Rescuing says, "I will carry the weight of your life for you." At first, this can look like love, loyalty, or generosity. But over time, it creates a hidden imbalance that neither person wants to name. When you always rescue, the other person may begin to feel powerless beside you. They depend on your advice, your money, your patience, your emotional stability, or your ability to fix what they avoid. And even if they asked for that help, part of them may start resenting the fact that your presence reminds them they are not standing on their own. Respect survives when help creates strength. Respect dies when help creates dependence. If someone only feels capable when you're carrying them, the relationship becomes dangerous. They may need you, but they may also hate needing you, and that hidden hatred often appears later as coldness, distance, criticism, or betrayal. Many generous people give too much because deep down they want to become indispensable. They believe that if they are useful enough, loyal enough, available enough, and forgiving enough, people will never leave. But helping from the need to be needed is not pure generosity. It is fear wearing the costume of kindness. This kind of help creates invisible expectation. You may say you expect nothing, but part of you may secretly hope for loyalty, affection, recognition, or protection from abandonment. And when the other person fails to return what you imagined, the pain feels like betrayal. But the deeper wound comes from giving with an unspoken contract. The wiser way is to help only when you can remain free inside the act. Give because it is aligned with your values, not because you're trying to buy permanence. Support because it is conscious, not because you are afraid of being forgotten. If you cannot give without silently demanding emotional payment, pause before you give. The strongest help is not the help that solves everything for someone. It is the help that returns them to their own strength. If you solve every problem, make every decision, and remove every consequence, you may feel useful, but you are also taking away the experience that could make that person stronger. A person grows when they participate in their own recovery. They need to think, choose, act, fail, adjust, and stand again. If you rescue them from every uncomfortable step, you may protect them from pain, but you also protect them from development. And later, they may resent you for occupying the space where their own power should have grown. This is why wise help involves the person in the solution. Ask them what they can do. Give support, but leave responsibility where it belongs. Offer guidance, but do not take ownership of their life. When people feel that they still have agency, your help does not humiliate them. It strengthens their dignity. Generosity without boundaries slowly becomes exhaustion. You keep giving because you want to be good, but your body becomes tired, your mind becomes heavy, and your peace becomes unstable. Then, when the other person does not appreciate the sacrifice, resentment begins growing in you too. This is how helping too much damages both sides. Boundaries do not make your help colder, they make it cleaner. They tell you where support ends and self-abandonment begins. They stop you from giving what you cannot afford to lose. They also stop others from confusing your kindness with unlimited access. A limit protects the dignity of both people. The brutal lesson is not to stop helping. It is to stop helping in ways that create debt, dependence, entitlement, or quiet hatred. Help from clarity. Help with limits. Help in a way that lets the other person stand taller, not smaller. The right kind of help does not make someone trapped under your generosity. It helps them walk forward with their own strength. One of the hardest lessons is that gratitude does not always remain alive just because the help was real. In the moment of crisis, the person may truly feel thankful. They may cry, promise they will never forget, and say, "You were the only one who stood beside them." But human memory changes when pride begins rewriting the story. What felt sacred during their weakness may later become uncomfortable during their recovery. Once they feel stable again, remembering how much they needed you can create pressure. Instead of honoring the memory, the ego may begin reducing it. It was not that important. It was not that much. I could have handled it anyway. This is why helping with the expectation of permanent loyalty can destroy your peace. You may spend years waiting for someone to honor a version of events they are trying to minimize. The wiser path is to help only when you can release the outcome. If gratitude comes, accept it. If it fades, do not let your identity collapse with it. There is another danger that generous people often miss. Sometimes the resentment does not only come from the person who received help. Sometimes it grows because the help becomes a permanent reminder. Every time the past is mentioned, every time the sacrifice is repeated, every time the giver says, "After everything I did for you," the gift begins to feel like a chain. Even good help can become heavy when it is constantly used as evidence. The other person may begin to feel trapped inside a debt they can never escape. Instead of feeling grateful, they feel watched. Instead of feeling supported, they feel owned. And once help feels like ownership, the relationship begins to lose oxygen. The mature way to help is to give without turning your generosity into a weapon. If you choose to help, do it cleanly. Do not use yesterday's support to control tomorrow's behavior. Do not keep the person emotionally kneeling forever. A gift that must be repaid with obedience was never truly a gift. It was a contract with softer language. A strong person can receive help without feeling destroyed by it. They may feel vulnerable, but they do not confuse vulnerability with humiliation. They understand that needing support for a season does not make them inferior. It makes them human. Because their identity is not so fragile, they can say thank you without secretly turning gratitude into shame. This kind of person uses help as a bridge back to strength. They do not stay on the ground demanding to be carried forever. They rise, learn, adjust, and become more capable. Your support becomes a temporary hand, not a permanent crutch. That is why gratitude remains healthy. It is connected to growth, not dependence. But an emotionally weak ego experiences help differently. It feels exposed. It feels measured. It feels like someone else witnessed a private failure. Instead of transforming the help into strength, it transforms the helper into a threat. This difference matters because the same act of kindness can heal one person and offend another. Helping the wrong person too many times can train them to believe your generosity is their right. At first, they may ask with humility, then they begin expecting. Then, they become irritated when you hesitate. What began as support becomes entitlement. The moment your help turns into something they demand, the relationship has already entered dangerous ground. This happens because repeated rescue can erase the feeling of appreciation. What arrives too easily begins to feel normal. What feels normal begins to feel owed, and what feels owed no longer creates gratitude. It creates frustration when it is delayed, anger when it is denied, and disrespect when you finally set a limit. The wiser path is to interrupt entitlement early. Do not reward every crisis with immediate rescue. Do not let someone treat your effort like an automatic service. Help should not make people forget that your time, peace, money, attention, and energy have value. If they cannot respect the limit, they were not respecting the help. The deepest question is not whether you should help people. The question is where your help comes from. Does it come from wisdom or from fear of rejection? Does it come from strength or from the need to be loved? Does it come from clarity or from the secret hope that becoming useful will protect you from being abandoned? When help comes from need, it often becomes too much. You give beyond your limits because you're trying to secure a place in someone's life. You say yes when you should pause. You rescue when you should guide. You carry what belongs to them because part of you believes being indispensable is the same as being safe. But when help comes from wisdom, it has boundaries. It supports without controlling. It gives without begging for loyalty. It protects dignity on both sides. It asks whether the help will create strength or dependence. This is the kind of help that does not poison relationships. It lifts people without lowering yourself. One of the cleanest forms of generosity is helping only when you are prepared to receive nothing back. No loyalty, no public gratitude, no emotional repayment, no guarantee that the person will remember your sacrifice the way you remember giving it. This sounds harsh, but it protects your peace because it removes the hidden contract that turns kindness into disappointment. If you cannot accept receiving nothing, then pause before helping. This does not make you selfish. It makes you honest. Many people give while secretly expecting recognition, loyalty, or special treatment later. But when that expectation is not met, they feel betrayed. The pain becomes stronger because the help was not only help, it was hope disguised as generosity. The wiser way is to ask yourself before you give, can I release this without using it later as evidence? If the answer is yes, give freely. If the answer is no, reduce the help or do not give it. Help should not become a trap for the other person or a wound for you. Real generosity is clean because it does not beg to be remembered. The purpose of help is not to make someone depend on you. The purpose is to return them to their own strength. If your support makes them feel capable, responsible, and more connected to their own power, then your help is healthy. But if your support makes them smaller, passive, ashamed, or dependent, then the help may be creating the very weakness you wanted to heal. This is why the best help involves participation. Do not solve everything alone. Ask them what they can do. Let them take one step, make one decision, carry one part of the weight. When people participate in their own recovery, they keep their dignity. They do not feel like passive receivers of your superiority. They feel like partners in their own return. A person who rises through your help will respect you more than a person who survives only because you carried them. Strength creates gratitude. Dependence creates discomfort. The more your help awakens their own ability, the less their ego needs to defend itself against you. This is where generosity becomes wisdom instead of rescue. Many people help too much because they fall in love with someone's potential. They see what the person could become, how strong they might be, how good their life could look if they made better choices. But potential is not the same as pattern. Potential shows what might be possible. Pattern shows what is actually happening. If someone repeatedly avoids responsibility, misuses your support, minimizes your effort, and returns only when they need something, you must believe the pattern. Do not let hope make you rescue the same person from the same consequences forever. Hope becomes dangerous when it makes you ignore evidence. The wise helper learns to separate compassion from fantasy. You can care about what someone could become without sacrificing yourself to a version of them that does not exist yet. Help the person in front of you, not the imaginary person your hope created. If their pattern keeps destroying balance, your limit must become stronger than your dream for them. The darkest part of helping too much is realizing that some people do not resent the gift. They resent the truth the gift reveals. Your help may reveal that they were weaker than they wanted to appear, less prepared than they pretended, more dependent than they admitted, or more fragile than their ego could tolerate. This is why they may try to rewrite you after you help them. They may call you arrogant, controlling, fake, or selfish, not because those things are true, but because the accusation gives them a way to recover power. If they can make you the problem, they no longer have to face the shame of needing you. Understanding this does not mean judging them with hatred. It means seeing the mechanism clearly. Some people are not emotionally developed enough to receive help without turning it into a wound. Your job is not to shrink yourself so their pride feels safer. Your job is to help with discernment and stop confusing their resentment with your failure. The final lesson is not to stop being generous. It is to stop being unconscious with your generosity. Help can heal, but help can also create dependence, resentment, entitlement, and silent hatred when it is given without limits. The same kindness that lifts one person can trap another if it removes responsibility from their hands. Wisdom asks better questions before it gives. Am I helping this person grow, or am I helping them avoid growth? Am I restoring their dignity, or making myself necessary? Am I giving from peace, or from the fear of not being loved? These questions protect both people because they keep generosity connected to truth. When you help with wisdom, you do not become cold, you become precise. You give where giving creates strength. You step back where giving creates weakness. You support without carrying another person's life. You care without becoming trapped. And you learn that the highest form of help is not saving someone forever, but helping them stand without you. The dark psychology of helping too much is that gratitude can turn into resentment when help wounds the ego, creates emotional debt, exposes weakness, or builds dependence. The person you helped may not hate what you gave, they may hate what needing it made them feel. They may minimize your sacrifice, criticize your motives, distance themselves, or rewrite the story because accepting the truth would force them to face their own fragility. But the lesson is not to become bitter. The lesson is to become wiser. Do not help to be needed. Do not rescue people so they will love you. Do not give so much that the relationship loses dignity. Help only when your peace can survive receiving nothing back. Help in a way that restores strength, not dependence. Help with limits, clarity, and self-respect. Because real generosity does not make someone a prisoner under your kindness. Real generosity helps them recover their own power. And when you understand that, you stop saving everyone and start helping in a way that protects both your heart and your life.